Well, Ulises, what otherwise was an exciting trip for the Rays organization to the Dominican Republic ended on a little bit of a sour note with a notable injury that occurred there.
And does that injury mean that somebody might not get traded anymore? Let's talk about it right now.
You are Locked On Rays, your daily Tampa Bay Rays podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, my name is Kevin Weiss.
I'm Ulises Sambrano.
And we are the host of the Locked On Rays podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you for making us your very first listen every day. Be sure to check out and subscribe to our YouTube channel at Locked On Rays. You can also find us on X and Instagram at Locked On Rays and email us anytime with a mailbag question or comment, lockedonrays@gmail.com.
Kevin, you and I were supposed to go to a game this weekend. I was unfortunately not able to do that because the Cobras are now undefeated. Keep being undefeated in Buddy Baseball. I could not miss that game. But you went to Clearwater and you got yourself a good baseball game, I assume, against the Phillies. Against who was playing the Phillies?
The Blue Jays. So
how was that game, man?
It was a good game. A lot of offensive output by both sides, more so the Blue Jays, because I think they ended up winning by 8 or 9 runs there. But it was a great day for baseball. Weather was perfect, and it was incredibly packed, as you would know or expect. Mostly Phillies fans. I think it was their 9th largest crowd, spring training crowd they've ever had at that facility. I think the count was around 10,900. In change, and we were sitting on the basically the left field foul line, give or take, and we almost were able to catch a couple balls that came into our territory. But it was a good experience. I also got to hang out in one of the private box suites for a little bit, so I'm going to be spoiled from now on because you get all the food and drink that you could ever imagine, plus the air conditioning, plus a great view of the action. But it's always fun when you go to a spring training game.
Yeah, I missed it. That sounds great, though. You know, you get in the royal treatment now, getting into private boxes. Locked On Rays is getting you that fame, baby. I like it.
Yeah, well, it wasn't. It was through a family member connection to a hospital. It had nothing to do with this podcast. But we can dream and imagine that it was.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Yeah. Speaking of spring training, I mean, the Rays are making waves and news by having some spring training games in the Dominican Republic as part of MLB's World Tour. Ulises, I don't know if you got a chance to watch or catch any highlights of the games over the past couple of days against the Boston Red Sox.
Just highlights. Again, I don't think it's necessary to watch the whole game if it's spring training. I think if you watch a couple innings,
unless you're at the game. If you're at the game, it's different. But if it's on TV or on the radio, there's really
you can do other things.
A waste of time, but there's other things you could be doing for sure.
You can do other things. It's not going to make it or break it. But what I saw, it seemed kind of that home run on, was it Saturday? Yes, or Friday, the first game, the 4-0 game. The home run to right field by the Red Sox player, I don't remember who was, Valdez maybe. Didn't it seem kind of foul? Like, didn't it seem kind of like, I don't know. Things like that.
Yeah.
I think overall, though, this kind of like Dominican series, the Korean series being opened up for the Dodgers and the Padres in a couple, maybe this week, actually. I think it's terrific. I think getting MLB players to go to these places and promote the game, I think it's fantastic. It's not an old thing. It is an old thing. I remember growing up knowing that the Yankees of DiMaggio had played in Venezuela, and they used to do this, 60, 80 years ago, and they kind of stopped. I remember when I was growing up, I think it was in 99. I think it was the Indians against the Reds or Pittsburgh Pirates. I don't remember who the teams were, but they played in Caracas when I was like 8 years old, like an exhibition spring training game. So like, but they stopped. This kind of thing stopped. And
My only thought is why it stopped would be maybe some of the agreements of the spring training facilities in Arizona and Florida and the cities or counties that are involved with that. They maybe want X number of games. Like if we're going to
True.
Earmark this amount of money for renovations and trying to make it a big deal and doing all this stuff to build around a tourist economic attraction. We don't need you all going for 3 days or a week to somewhere else to miss out on, one spring training game, 2 spring training games that can have a big economic impact for the surrounding area for those respective communities. So that was my only thought on why it may have stopped for a period of time. So
right, so the municipalities maybe got a little bit more power than they had in the past, or more.
Or they got
more
smart
voice.
with the updating the agreements and just saying, hey, you can't just run off anywhere you want to play a spring training game going forward.
True.
Because I mean, you look at what some of these, like what Clearwater's and Dunedin are putting into the Blue Jays and Phillies complexes respectively. It's a lot of money. So
it was like
I'm with you. I did not
right,
watch
for the Dunedin one.
I'm sorry.
It was like $80 million for the renovations in the Dunedin one, right?
Correct. So I'm with you. I did not catch innings 1 through 9 of the action in the DR, but I think it's a win-win-win-win. It's a homecoming for players like Jose Siri and Junior Caminero, and then it allows other players like Curtis Mead and Americans and players not from that country to soak in the culture and the experience of what it's like to be in the DR, not to mention the positive and continuing PR coverage that this moment gave to the Rays and the Red Sox and baseball as a whole. And there's a lot of other good things that happen when the Rays and pro teams are down there. You provide inspiration to kids in the area. There's opportunities for them to meet face to face, and the crowds too. I think that probably livened it up, because we know that spring training can, be a little bit of a wear on some players. So I think having this break somewhat in the middle of spring training, of not a break, but a change in scenery where you have 11, 12,000 people watching a ball game, it changes the complexion. And then you go back to Port Charlotte to finish out the string there.
It levens it up, the fact that, look, when you're in camp, you've heard from players say that it sometimes is a little bit too long, spring training, especially for hitters sometimes. So it gets a little bit of a kind of a grind. Like, imagine that, like, it's already a grind and you still have like 6 more.
Yeah, you still got 6 months and 162, and you got to travel to. So you got to travel 40,000 miles over the period of that time.
So no, this is, I think it's terrific, and from what Stu Sternberg was quoted saying, that like they always look for these opportunities to participate in. They did the Cuba trip. I think it was 2016, 2017. All those things. I really think that the Rays always they are very smart at taking these opportunities. Why? Number one, to get that, feeling of camaraderie of the team, like that can galvanize a team, like just like, an experience, it makes you closer together, like that's great for team building. Number one. Number two, you're spreading your brand. Right. Tampa Bay Rays is not a huge worldwide brand. So when you have these opportunities to take your brand globally into Cuba, into Dominican Republic, hopefully somewhere else in the future, that is huge to gain new fans.
Yeah, and maybe it allows you to sign an international free agent or two.
Exactly.
But yeah, I think that's all important and inclusive for sure. Now, there was, as we mentioned in the open, a little bit of a sour note that occurred from this series due to an injury. We'll get to that. But first, we have to tell you this. Get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and more. So just visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn, LOCKEDON, to shoot your shot today. I'll repeat it again, FanDuel.com/LOCKEDON, to shoot your shot. FanDuel, they are the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. So what happened while the Rays were in the DR, Rays backup outfielder Jonny DeLuca broke his hand after being hit by a pitch from Red Sox starter Garrett Whitlock. I believe it was on a check swing in the third inning in one of those games. And I believe it's his right throwing hand. And he will be out, the timeline says, 4 to 6 weeks. So no bueno on that front.
No bueno. And it's a shame because when we talked about our outfield competition episode last week, we both were in agreement. Like, he's going to have a lot of opportunity to play. Even with Klosky, we were looking at the splits of Jose Siri, and we saw, this is an opportunity that Jonny DeLuca could take advantage of, as Siri does not play well against lefties. So if that's an opening for Jonny to get in there, he's going to get a very big shot. And then Josh Lowe is a little bit, banged up. Maybe he can get some at bats early in the season, but that's not going to happen. 4 to 6 weeks. It's not the end of the world. Garrett Whitlock is not getting any Christmas cards from Rays fans this year. I would say, though, I think this immediately impacts Harold Ramirez. I don't think with a guy that would take around, we were projecting him for around 250, 300 at bats for Jonny DeLuca.
Yeah, give or take, I would say that's fair.
Well, that's going to be diminished now because of this. From the right hand side of the plate, I don't think you can afford right now a Harold Ramirez trade for this production. Like, you can't just take out these two guys at the same time. I think Harold basically just got himself a reprieve from a spring training trade, unless something amazing comes about. But if something amazing comes about, it should have already happened. Not after March 11th. So I think this actually just gives Harold Ramirez an extended stay as a Rays player.
Now, as far as that extended stay, do you see him getting action corner outfield, or when he's in the lineup, it's only going to be as a DH?
I think it's going to be corner outfield. I think we're going to see him a little bit more on the turf out there, because you can't just pigeonhole yourself with only Harold if Aranda is also going to be making the roster. So we've had this talk many times with Klosky now. Like, can you carry Harold and Aranda in the same team at the same time, 26-man roster? You could for some period of time.
If you have enough injuries, I guess you have to. That might be the point of difference there.
If Aranda makes the roster, and now with this injury, you can't take Harold out of the lineup. So I don't see a point where Harold is strictly the DH. I think we're going to see him first base, corner outfielder, and maybe more in the outfield now with this injury.
So with DeLuca's injury, and we also have to consider this, I know they say 4 to 6 weeks, but how much longer until his power returns and his throwing motion returns, and will he have any stage fright or hesitancy in the box and just getting adjusted to major league pitchers again? I mean, he's basically going to have to take a back seat for what I would imagine several weeks. So yeah, he might be able to play again in 4 to 6 weeks, but maybe it takes 8 to 10 to 11 weeks for him to feel like 100% Jonny DeLuca. So I just want to put that out there. That's why those hand wrist injuries suck for hitters and players in general, for sure. So now what I'm hearing is, even with this injury to Jonny DeLuca, and I know Josh Lowe is still dealing with the hip issue, but he is expected to be ready for opening day, you still don't see a pathway for Richie Palacios yet. With the injury of DeLuca, assuming Josh Lowe is ready for opening day. I guess Josh Lowe is going to be the backup center fielder to Jose Siri. It's somebody else that takes that extra spot. That's
Good
available.
question. Because I do see Richie Palacios now getting the bid for that roster spot. I unfortunately think our boy Curtis Mead might not be in.
Oh,
opening
okay.
day.
So you see Palacios making the roster, Aranda making the roster, Curtis Mead getting sent to AAA.
I think so. I think that's what it is. I gotta take heed from what the front office and Cash and like Klosky said. They have basically Aranda has done everything and anything that we have asked him to do in AAA. Like there's nothing else to prove. Like he needs to have a clear lane. And that clear lane, now with Harold possibly not getting traded with this injury, it's almost a foregone conclusion. Like you have to have somebody in AAA. You can't. There's just a few spots, and so if Mead goes to AAA, that means let's say Aranda makes the roster, and then Palacios comes in for DeLuca. I think it's unfortunate because I think Mead can cover third, first, second. Maybe they were talking a little bit of shortstop. But in this case, I think he's the one that gets on the chopping block to AAA.
Yeah, it's tough because I could see a situation where Curtis Mead is more deserving, but I almost think you need to get to the point where if you're going to have Curtis Mead on the big league roster, you need to have the idea that he's going to be an everyday player, because that's eventually what I see for him. Where Richie Palacios, it's like, yeah, we don't have that much invested in you. We're okay with you being a bench platoon guy. Where when it's time to call up Curtis Mead, however they have to design the roster to see fit, I mean, I think similar to Caminero, when Caminero gets the call up, he needs to be playing every day. That's at least what I would like to see in a perfect world with Curtis Mead as well.
And so you got a third baseman that is blocked by Paredes, and then you have a second baseman that is blocked by Bilao. So, this is Bilau's last year before the options kick in.
Right.
So a so-so year, that means goodbye Bilao, and maybe Mead can take second base, and then maybe a trade that happens with Paredes, and then you can put in Caminero for third. Like the depth is there, and I think with these injuries, like the DeLuca one, we have to be conscientious that it's a good problem to have. It's a good problem to have so many players that you want in this 26-man roster, because some other teams, they lose a player, a backup, a fourth outfielder, and the roof is on fire. Right. That's not the case for the Rays, and that's a good thing. But hopefully that's the last of the injuries until the season starts. But I think that if you take out Mead for Aranda, which seems to be the case, and then DeLuca now hurt, that gives the opportunity for Richie Palacios, who, by the way, he has 61 innings in center field.
Yeah, he's played center field. That's kind of what I was thinking of. I guess Josh Lowe would be the primary backup center fielder, unless they just don't want him unless they don't want to throw that on his plate whatsoever. Hey, you got a good thing going in right field. Let's give some opportunities to Palacios in center. Maybe that's the play there.
I think so. I think so, because if they had felt so good about Josh Lowe being a center field backup, then we wouldn't really have seen Luke Raley out there last year.
Right.
We really wouldn't have. We would have just seen Josh. So the fact that we see Luke Raley makes me think, maybe they really just like what they have Josh Lowe in right field. Like, if he can move in center, sure, sometimes, but maybe he's not the primary one. And if you have Richie Palacios, hey, get out there. You've done it before. Like, again, 61 innings in center field in 2023. If we're talking about Richie Palacios as a candidate to cover second base at times, he's played 12 innings at second base in the MLB level. So I am more than sure that he's going to see some time in center field.
Well, with all the infielders already that can cover second base, if we get to a point where Palacios is playing second base, something's gone terribly awry. I mean, between Brandon Lau and Ahmed Rosario and Isaac Paredes could fill in there, and Aranda, Curtis Mead. I mean, there's a lot of guys that Jose Caballero. I mean, Basabe. We could just go on and on with that. But yeah, I'm to the point where Josh Lowe, you don't want to put another thing on his plate. And if that's something that takes away his direction and focus from what he's doing at the plate and in the field, it's not everybody can. I just don't think it necessarily has to be done. Just plug and play in right field.
Yeah.
Similar to Yandy Diaz, plug and play at first now. Isaac Paredes, pretty much plug and play at third now. Randy Rosarena,
nice.
plug and play in left field now. That's what I would go with. So what I'm hearing is right now, after the DeLuca injury, the guys who will play or get action in the outfield are Siri, Lowe, Randy, Rosario, and Harold. Am I missing anybody?
No, that's it actually. I'm pretty positive that's how it's going to start. Like the opening day roster is getting a little bit clearer now, and unfortunately, it got clearer just because of this injury. Really,
yeah, and it might unfortunately not be the last of the injuries. We're only at March 11th here, and we've already had some unfortunate things happen.
Very true.
We do have more to discuss, Ulises, but first we've got to tell the audience something important.
Yes, we do. Look, you have to talk about Amazon Fire TV, which is your destination for sports, from live games to highlights to in-depth analysis. It offers amazing viewing experiences with smart TVs, as well as the Fire TV stick that you can plug into your existing TV and provides access to millions of movies and TV episodes, as well as free and live TV. Recently, they created Fire TV channels to deliver a constant supply of the latest videos from your favorite sports brand, all for free. That includes all of us at Locked On. So if you're a Locked On fan, hey, guess what? You can have this on the Fire TV channels and most of the big pro leagues and college conferences as well. Fire TV channels lets you dive into all of the game analysis, highlights, and more to keep up to date on all the latest world of sports. March Madness, which is coming up, NBA and MLB, and lots more. Not to mention great news, entertainment, gaming, travel, cooking videos as well. I'm hungry already, and it's very early in the morning. Check out Fire TV channels on Fire TV and Alexa devices. If you haven't checked out Fire TV channels, you definitely should. To learn more, visit www.amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV. Kevin.
Yes.
So this is what I have for folks on YouTube. You got to check it out. Hit like, hit subscribe button. But you can see it here. This is how I'm seeing it now. I think, obviously, on the right side, Walls is not going to make the roster because of injury. DeLuca is not going to make the roster because of injury. The one name I think is going to be switched right here from what I had earlier is Mead. Mead going from opening the roster, and then you switch it to Aranda. I don't know if you see it the same.
No, I think that's fair. And that just gets me thinking at some point, if you want to provide and create opportunities for Curtis Mead, you may have to, down the road, develop some sort of trade package where you're shifting off Harold Ramirez and Taylor Walls. Like I totally forgot about Taylor Walls too. Like the Rays are going to have to hone a spot in for him when he comes back healthy as well. So that changes a lot of the math too.
Yes. Just because I'm saying that Harold Ramirez is not going to trade right now, that doesn't mean that Harold Ramirez is not going to get traded, period. I feel like there could be an opportunity for a Denard Span type trade. What do I mean by that? Well, I mean that it's an earlier than thought trade. Denard, I think, was traded around May 20th of the 2018 season. I think we could see something like that. Harold, like, okay, we got to make space for some of these guys, and then you make that earlier than thought of trade in May, and then Harold gets shipped off, or somebody else gets shipped off. But you might need to do that earlier than you think, because you can't just like stock these players in AAA,
right?
For years and years.
Before we end, we do want to acknowledge one other Rays related note here, and that is Mike Zunino Ulises' favorite player of all time, has officially retired. He made the announcement on his social media last week. 11 years in the bigs, 4 seasons with the Rays, and should point out that every year that he was with the Rays did make the playoffs. And then, of course, he had that amazing, fantastic, crazy 2021 season where he was an all-star and hit, I think, 33 home runs. And against lefties, he was basically Babe Ruth or Lou Gehrig. Like that's what happened that year. But and Florida man, he was born and raised in Cape Coral, went to the University of Florida, and then ultimately was drafted by the Seattle Mariners in 2012, rushed to the majors in 2013. I'd like to see how his career trajectory may have changed if he was given enough time to cook and hone that hitting stroke of his before he got the call up. I think that kind of messed him up going forward. But still, 11 years in the bigs, you have that pension, you've been an all-star, you've made your millions, and everything I've heard and read and encountered about Mike Zunino is that he loves him some baseball. He's a great guy. He's got the makeup on his side, that this might not be the last of him in his involvement with the game, i.e. being a coach, being a manager, being a scout, being a front office exec, something of that ilk.
100%. Yeah, that 2021 season was magical. We will always forever have that year. Plus, we will always have forever that possibly one of the best top 5 bobbleheads of all time.
Yes.
I mean, this is just art. If you're not seeing what I'm seeing, go to YouTube. Look at this. This is Florida man, bobblehead, Zunino. I mean, that's just fantastic stuff right there.
That's
Look
almost as fantastic as some of the moonshots that he hit in 2021.
Exactly.
That were 475 feet straight away center.
This is fantastic.
Against Jordan Montgomery or some other lefty.
Yeah, only lefties. No, he was great that season. Wish him the best. I feel like this is a guy that in like Stephen Vogt, Kevin Cash style, obviously catchers, but
yeah,
that he's going to get a managerial gig. Now, if it's going to be next year, no, probably not. But I think he's definitely going to be involved in baseball, and in 5 to 10 years, you're going to see him.
Oh yeah, I could see him going the route of he's a roving minor league catching instructor, then works his way up to a bench coach, and then probably not a hitting coach anytime soon. But I could see him eventually finding that lane of maybe he coaches AA, then AAA, and before you know it, he's in the bigs somewhere.
It's so crazy. Like he was legitimately the first college baseball player that I followed, because he's kind of our contemporary. I mean, he was in college while we were in college, and so this UF guy named Mike Zunino. So I started following, and I was like, man, this guy's going to be just a menace. So, yeah, I was just like, this guy's going to be one of the best catchers ever. This is why we all need to learn. There is a difference between raking in college baseball, raking in AA, raking in AAA, and then going to the show. It's just different.
Especially at the catcher position where you're dealing with so much more. Because I understand it in college, or at least the way it was, is, basically it's the coach or the manager telling you he's more managing the game of just telling you what finger to put down, whereas in the pros it's a lot more of the onus and the brain power is on the catcher versus the manager, and fostering that relationship and in all the different pitchers that you have to deal with. It's not easy at all.
And the data too, the data volume just increases 10 times when you get into pro ball than you were in college. I mean, it's just incredible. So it's just a lot of different things to handle once you get up and up and up. So again, I think we make the point here that you wish everything good for all prospects, but it's just another reminder that it is a very tough game. That's why there's only 720 spots or so in the major leagues, and it's really difficult to be a major leaguer for 10 years. So what he did, fantastic, and I think a lot of catchers in college right now would hope to reach what Mike Zunino did.
Can you name the other Rays all-star catchers in their history?
Wilson Ramos,
Correct.
Venezuelan bump. Dioner Navarro, Venezuelan bump. Am I missing one?
I think those are the only two, actually.
Let's go.
Navarro in 2008 and Ramos in 2018. And then, of course, Zunino in 2021 with Joey Wendell and Andrew Kittredge. That was the year of, this is the only time these guys, these three players are going to be all-stars. They got their one and done, basically, because I don't see Wendell being an all-star again. Zunino's retired. Kittredge, I would highly doubt if he's an all-star again. But, relievers, you never know sometimes. But, Zunino was kind of that wave of, hey, we're going to focus on framing and relationship with pitchers and throwing out base stealers. And then anything we get from the offensive side is a bonus. Of course, we wanted a little bit more offense from Mike Zunino. In fact, I saw a really interesting stat. Now it's on Twitter. I don't know if it's 100% accurate, but it does seem to ring true that there are only two players in MLB history with 100+ home runs and a batting average below 200. Mike Zunino is one of them. Do you know the other?
No, that has to be Joey Gallo.
Joey Gallo, correct. Yeah. The, I think, overrated Joey Gallo.
Do not get me started on Joey Gallo, because there were so many Rays fans when he was coming up that were like, we gotta get Joey Gallo. Joey Gallo is gonna be the best thing.
Yeah.
Really?
I don't get it.
I don't get it.
If you're complaining about Mike Zunino and what he's doing at the catcher position offensively, an outfielder, well, I guess Gallo, I can't remember exactly which positions he played. I think corner, outfield, and maybe first base, something like that. And DH, it's like, yeah, that's not good. Yeah. The other interesting stat that I noticed is Mike Zunino's career on-base percentage of 271 is actually higher than that of Jose Siri, what he put out last year at 267. So Zunino did walk a lot. He struck out 35% of the time. He was the classic three true outcome players. It was either a home run, a no-doubter home run, a walk, or a strikeout. That's what you were getting from him, basically.
Yeah, he was.
Well, that 2021 season, I think we saw some more base hits and some more doubles, but lot of home runs.
Yeah, but I mean that's basically the trade, and that's basically what baseball turned into from 2010 to 2020. That three true outcomes. So again, good things for Zunino. Hopefully he'll get a coaching gig somewhere, and awesome bobblehead. Thanks for the memories.
There we go. All right. In the meantime, hope you all have a wonderful day. Stay safe, and we will talk to you tomorrow.